I've been having a bit of a tough time recently, so I decided I needed some serious pampering. So I was heading towards Penzance in Cornwall, and I wanted to book myself into a really luxury hotel, and the one that stood out as above all others, which was actually described on its website as the best hotel in Penzance, was the Hotel Penzance, which is a 4-star hotel within about 5 minutes walk of the railway station, and I was coming by train, so that seemed ideal. I booked through Expedia, but whenever I book through a third-party booking site, I always check the hotel website to make sure that what the third-party site is claiming is actually true. And the website looked absolutely amazing. So I booked 2 nights at the 4-star best hotel in Penzance, the Hotel Penzance. I booked a large double room. I couldn't quite afford the double room with sea view, so this was one that they assured me would make up for the fact that it wasn't overlooking the sea by the amount of light that came in through the window and the sumptuousness of the surroundings. Anyway, from the moment I arrived at the hotel, I was late, yes, because my train didn't get in until about 20 to 10 in the evening. But I called a taxi and I managed to get to the hotel at 9:45, which was pretty good. And I called in advance to warn them. I'd spoken to a lady and I told her what time I would be arriving, and she assured me someone would be there to welcome me. But from the moment I arrived, it was obvious that all was not as promised on the website. For a start, reception was empty, and it was ages before someone turned up. There was a notice on reception that said you could dial 0 and someone would be with you immediately if no one was on reception. But I dialed 0 about 4 or 5 times and no one turned up. And I went into the corridor and I shouted, "Hello, is anyone there?" But eventually someone did turn up, a gentleman. But there was no warm welcome. There's no glass of bubbly on arrival, which they claim on their website. If you look at the homepage, it's got a girl carrying a tray of sparkling wines. There was none of that, and all this man did, he didn't say welcome or have you travelled far or are you tired after a long journey or anything like that, although he did tell me what time breakfast was. That was the only information he gave me. He simply demanded to see my ID, and he just went, "ID, please." And I said, "Do you mean my credit card?" He said, "No, ID." So I thought, well, thank goodness I brought my driving licence. So I fished that out, and he took it from me and photocopied it for some reason. I've never been asked for ID in a UK hotel. It was a bit weird. Anyway, he showed me to my room. He did carry my suitcase and he just left me there. Now, in the room, I was sort of hunting around for some information about the hotel, like maybe a breakfast menu, breakfast timings, information about internet connection, services available. I mean, on the website, they claim they do breakfast in bed, but there was no information anywhere. There were a couple of magazines about Cornwall, but that was it. So the room, however, which was good despite overlooking the car park, it was well presented and clean, and it was very big. But there were a number of things that were different from the promises on the website. There was no box of chocolates, for example, which are shown in the homepage photo on the website. There was just a packet of crisps and another packet of nuts, plus 2 small packs of biscuits. There was no espresso coffee maker, which Expedia claims they have, just a kettle and the usual sachets you'd expect in any hotel, sachets of tea, coffee, milk, and chocolate. For a 4-star hotel, you expect something a bit more than this. The bottled water, the free bottled water, which Expedia claims it offers, was actually tap water in a bottle, which I suppose is bottled water. No, I was expecting something like I got at the previous hotel, which was Harrogate spring water in a sealed bottle. But anyway, I had a look round, had a look in the bathroom, because they promised free designer toiletries, but these turned out to be pump action bottles locked into the bathroom walls, like you get in many hotels, presumably to stop people stealing the toiletries. The website claimed blackout curtains in every room. This is not true. My room had ordinary roller blinds, a single blind across each of the sash windows, which let in a lot of light when it was light outside. And there was a large TV, but bizarrely it seemed to have no terrestrial channels like the BBC, ITV, etc. Although I searched for, I pressed every single button I could, and all it had was a huge range of strange pipes channels, thousands of them, but nothing I really wanted to watch. So now for the bedding. On their website and in Expedia, they promise premium bedding, Egyptian cotton linens. Well, I don't know if it was cotton or not, and I don't know if it was made in Egypt, but what I was getting in this room was simply standard, thin, white satin stripe linen and the duvet cover, like you get in many, many, many hotels. And the duvet itself was kind of heavy and flattened, probably well used. And the undersheet was just a thin, normal sheet, nothing special. And the pillows were okay, but they did have pillow protectors inside, but they were quite hard. I kind of expected crisp cotton bedding and fluffy duvets for a 4-star hotel, but this definitely wasn't what I was getting. And in the bathroom, there was evidence of mildew around the tile grouting, and also the bath panel needed attention. It was a bit sort of smashed. There was a sign above the towel rail which said caution hot rail, but it wasn't. It was freezing cold, and there seemed to be no way to switch it on. It had rust at its base too, which was a bit of a shame. And Back in the bedroom, one of the wall lights wasn't working either, but there didn't ever seem to be anyone in reception who I could ask about anything. It was completely deserted the whole time I was there. Anyway, in the room I looked around for information on Wi-Fi connections, but then just noted my phone connected automatically. There was no code required, and it was a completely unsecured connection. So please be warned if you're thinking of visiting the Hotel Penzance on business. The internet connection is not secure. Anyway, now for the pièce de résistance, the fabulous farmhouse breakfast shown on the website's homepage with an amazing photograph of the spread available. I mean, that is the main thing, to be honest, that attracted me to this hotel. I thought I'm going to have an absolutely amazing breakfast experience for the 2 days that I'm there. Well, for a starter, it took me quite a while to find the breakfast room because nothing is signposted. There are no labels on any of the doors, so I was wandering around a bit trying to find it, and of course there was no one in reception, nobody around to direct me. I found it in the end, but what a disappointment. I was greeted by a woman who just said, "Oh, you're the one who came by train." There was no "Good morning, have you had a good night? How far have you come? Did you sleep well?" or anything like that. However, she did promise that the chef, who was standing in the middle of the breakfast display in front of a hob and hot plates, would cook me anything you like. So I put this to the test on day 2. Meanwhile, on day 1, now for the breakfast display versus what's shown on the website. There was no assortment of artisan-style rolls and breads, just a choice of pretty bog-standard packet sliced white bread and sliced brown bread. just stacked up next to a toaster. There wasn't even seeded bread or bread rolls. There were no continental meats or cheeses as shown on the photo. There were no deli items. I mean, the photo shows things like olives, etc. There were mushrooms and chopped onions next to the frying pans, just if people requested those, but that's pretty standard stuff. There were no melon slices with tongs to serve yourself, just a bowl of apples and bananas, still with their labels on. And on day one, the croissants she pointed to had gone, but there were 2 supermarket-style pain au chocolats left. That was all. But oddly, there should have been the pain au chocolat basket, another basket, and the basket on the right would have had croissants, but the basket in the middle, oddly enough, seemed to contain cold hash browns, the triangle sort that you get in packets at Iceland and places. How strange. And there was a coffee machine which looked a bit like a million people had pressed the top of the buttons, and it took ages to press them. Didn't look very clean, to be honest. I pressed the button for a cappuccino and I got a coffee which wasn't too bad, but it had absolutely no froth on it, and the same on day 2. It was not a cappuccino. Anyway, the chef, who was surrounded by this breakfast display, which I must add, the breakfast display on the left included a selection of I think it was 3 individual boxes of Kellogg's cereals, like you get anywhere really, and some glasses into which had been spooned some plain yoghurt, so there weren't individual yoghurts or anything like that. Anyway, back to the chef. He served me up 2 fried eggs, 2 slices of bacon and 1 sausage, and one of the yolks was broken on the eggs, and the bacon itself was absolutely rock hard. I think it had been either overcooked or hanging around on the hot plate for some time, or both. The sausage was pretty ordinary, like you just get in a supermarket freezer department pack, and it was quite greasy. And I had to leave much of the breakfast because it was inedible, and even the little I did have gave me indigestion all morning, which wasn't ideal. On day 2, the woman wasn't there. The chef had obviously gone off somewhere, and there was an enormous pan that looked like a wok full of baked beans, which were bubbling away within an inch of their lives. I mean, they were really furiously bubbling away, and there was the usual sausages and overcooked bacon on the hot plates. But I decided to see if I could get something a bit more exotic. So on day 2, I asked if the chef, when he turned up, could do me smoked salmon with poached eggs, which isn't an unusual request, as I'd had this every day in a chain pub hotel last year. He said, no, we don't have any smoked salmon, but he could do me 2 poached eggs. The eggs were done well, no fault there. However, he'd included some Parma ham, which I hadn't asked for. I mean, what if I'd been a vegetarian, for example? He'd also included an ordinary supermarket-style English muffin. It was untoasted and there was no butter. But he did serve me a large pot of what I assumed was hollandaise sauce. I decided that I'd be a bit naughty, a bit cheeky, and I'd ask the chef where all the items were that were shown on the website photo. But he said, oh, we no longer do them. Now, if that's the case, then they really should update their website, as it's misleading. It had misled me into staying at the hotel because the breakfast was something that attracted me. It looked great. It looked different from what every hotel offered, but what I was getting here was just what I would have got in any cheap seaside bed and breakfast. Anyway, I took a table by the window, the same table that I'd taken on day 1, And the view from my table was through a French window which overlooked the area with the swimming pool, which of course it was March, so the swimming pool wasn't in use. But what I was looking at was the French window. The glass had blown and it was all a bit grubby looking inside the glass. And also, over the 2 days that I breakfasted there was a small table on the terrace directly outside the window which had an ashtray on it with cigarette butts which were floating around in rainwater, and these were there over the 2 days, so no one had cleared them up, and that's not a great sight when you're having breakfast. But hey, the website shows loads of plants and everything. It looks like a tropical greenhouse. Looks fantastic. But when you look closer up, all the foliage was fake. It was all plastic. So that was the breakfast, which greatly disappointed because it was nothing like the website photo. And in my mind, that is total misrepresentation. Anyway, I never saw anyone in reception the whole time I was there, as I've already said. There was no one to ask about anything, no help or assistance available, and no room service that I could see, or breakfast in bed, which they promised, because there was never anyone to ask. And there was no information in the bedroom which explained that you could get these services and who to ask if you wanted them. But seriously, looking back, it's evident to me that the hotel has done what looks like a massive universal cost-cutting exercise. This is fine because there's a cost of living crisis at the moment, but if you are, please get the star rating adjusted and remove the sign outside the breakfast room which showed that the hotel had won a Visit England breakfast award. Oh my god, they wouldn't do for the breakfast I had. And they really need to update their website, as it is significantly misleading. I mean, I booked on the strength of what I saw on the website, and the reality was very different. This is misleading. I'm very disappointed. I recognise the vital importance of being truthful and accurate in your offer on your website. If you are offering things that no longer exist, if your offer has changed at all, then you need to change the website to match, and you need to get in touch with the third-party booking services like Expedia and so on to change their list of services too. Because at the moment, anyone that books on the strength of what they're seeing on the website and the services that are detailed on sites like Expedia are going to be very disappointed. So be careful if you book at the Hotel Penzance, because you may not get what you are expecting to get.